Hello, welcome to the Volley Mama podcast. Today I have Bea Graves with me. And if you live in Arizona and you do not know Bea Graves, you might be living under a cactus because she has been such a big part of the Arizona volleyball community and beyond. She is such an ambassador for the sport, and she was inducted into the Arizona Beach Hall of Fame, actually, for establishing the sport in our state. So welcome, Bea.
Thank you, Amy. Very happy to be here today.
So let's talk about how you started in volleyball first. So why volleyball? How old were you when you started? Kind of like your early volleyball journey.
Okay, sounds good. Well, I was a tomboy as a kid growing up, and I loved all the sports. So I played everything I could in school, after school, before school, during recess, all the time. When I got into high school, we didn't have any women's sports because it was before Title IX. And so I didn't play for my school, but I discovered that the local park, Encanto Park, had people playing volleyball on cement courts outside. And so I just used to go hang out as a 15, 16, 17-year-old girl, just asking, hey, can I play? Can I play? Can I play? And these guys are all on leagues and they're all adults and they're not that great, but they knew more than I did. And I just wanted to play. And they were very kind and they let me play all the time with them. And a couple of them were coaches, and so they helped coach me. So by the time I got into college age, I actually got the opportunity to redshirt for ASU, their indoor team, but I was a music major at ASU, so I could not do both. So I chose music instead, but it was quite an honor to be considered for ASU, even though I hadn't even played in high school. So that's my very early experience. It was wild and free at the park with just a bunch of guys.
So did you have any coaching or you just learned the game on your own? How did that come about?
Yeah, I really just learned it on my own. And then when I got a little older, 17, 18, there were a couple guys that coached, and they got me to play on an indoor team. And so they coached me on the positioning. I didn't get any coaching as far as hitting or the basic skills. I just learned those at the park on my own. So I always felt like maybe at a slight disadvantage from the girls as I matured in my journey through volleyball. A lot of indoor players would come out, and I kind of felt a little bit, lacking in some ways because I didn't have the form that they did. I didn't really know what they were talking about in some cases because they were using all the indoor terms and stuff. But I just felt like the wild tomboy that would put it over on one or two or just try to be tricky.
And then when did you get into beach volleyball?
So in the early 80s, I was playing indoor in an indoor co-ed league with a bunch of guys and a couple girls too. Great group of people. The Hoffmans, Mike Hoffman and Jim Hoffman, and then Steve Reese. These guys were just really good early proponents of beach. And they told me one day in July, they came out and at our indoor league, they said, oh, we're playing in a doubles tournament at Indian School Park on Saturday. You should come and watch. It's all men's. And I thought they were pulling my leg because July in Phoenix, outdoor in the sand. And I just thought they were joking, but I went out anyway, and there they were. And it was glorious to me because you have only two people on a side. If you've played indoor, you can go a whole rotation around without touching the ball, sometimes. And if you're playing a team that's miles better than you or horribly worse than you, it's not really a game. But in doubles, it's all you. And then I saw the ref sitting under the net with a beer every now and then saying, no, in, or whatever he was saying. And it was like, this is the best game ever. And I was hooked. But in Phoenix here, there weren't really any girls that played volleyball. So I just played with men for the first over 10 years of my life, I just played men's on the men's net. And of course, back then the nets would not raise and lower easily. So you had to, if you wanted to play women's, you had to get the rope and tie it down and stuff. And we never did that. I was always on a men's net, always with the guys. Eventually, I did get my men's double A rating here in town with DC Davis. We played in a men's A tournament and won it. He and I did. So that was, a big accomplishment for me. But shortly after that, we started getting more women. If we had 4 women's teams, it would be a big tournament, here in Phoenix. But we eventually built it up and to where it got to be, pretty solid all the time. And I prefer women's. You get the women's net, and you don't get the. I don't know. It's just a different game.
Oh yeah, I used to get in trouble in Imperial Beach for lowering the net. The guys didn't really like that I came into town and lowered the net. They were like,
Mm.
"Oh, take that stuff to Mission Beach." It's kind of funny because they prided themselves on the community of like only playing on the men's net, and the women played on the men's net, and the men thought that was really cool. But I think ultimately they just didn't want to adjust the net.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
But
exactly.
so then you ended up running some tournaments in Arizona. How did that come about?
Yeah. So the sure, maybe within a few years after that, first in my initial baptism into doubles sand volleyball here in Indian School Park, a bunch of the guys got together and formed the Arizona Outdoor Volleyball Association, the AOVA, and they were really good at getting the guys to come out. And it was a very enthusiastic crowd, and like by then we had a few women's teams, so here and there we'd play. We get the women going to primarily men's, and they started tournaments on the weekends where we would get um, maybe 500 teams over the weekend, and we
Oh,
would
wow.
pack everybody in. We had one facility, Gateway Park, which had 8 courts, and that is no longer there. It was basically an unused plot of land that a hotel, the Gateway Hotel on Van Buren and was it 16th Street, 24th Street, something like that, was not using. So they put sand courts in there. It was wonderful. The AVP came there. We played all of our tournaments there. And then the guys kind of started losing interest in the administration part of it and the getting teams together. And of course, this was before the internet. And so I set up a phone line, a second phone line at my house where people could call in their entries if they wanted to play in the tournament. I started doing more of that administrative type of stuff that made tournaments run smoother. And of course, I was a really good player at back then too. So, I had some respect there for my knowledge of the game. And I started running some tournaments and then eventually took over the whole organization and planned them, got some sponsors, put them on all over the state. We went to Sierra Vista and lots in Flagstaff, some in Prescott, some out on the border in Blythe. And it was really fun to run the organization and had a lot of people help run it at the time. Jeff Galley back then was a big help on getting things going and making sure they ran smooth. But then after a while, everything comes to an end. I ran it for 2 or 3 years, and I decided that I needed to get a real job that you actually got paid money to do. So I gave up the running that organization, but I've run tournaments throughout the years since then. I've just continued to keep my hand in, mostly women's these days. I do a Queen of the Beach, oftentimes here, just a bunch of women, and we'll get up to 24 women. We'll rent all the courts at Scottsdale Ranch Park, and we'll just play for 3 hours straight. And then I also run an old not dead women's division, so you have to be over 40 for women. And we do doubles and just have a big weekend of women's doubles. So every now and then I'll run another one, but yeah.
Awesome. I mean, it's really hard to run tournaments. I don't know if it's changed like over the years, with in conjunction with how the AVP came in and now it's kind of tapering off and
Yeah.
um, running tournaments is difficult because it seems like beach volleyball is still like, well, show up when I want to show up kind of thing. as well?
So it's always been, the players have always been kind of informal. When I was running the AOVA,
Yeah.
people would give me bad checks all the time because all the business was checks by at that point, or cash. But we get a lot of out of state players coming in from Southern California that would just give me a bad check, and
Wow.
or the guys, especially it's always the guys, right? But they were so. I remember one time one of the top players came in 2 hours after the tournament started and wanted me to put him in, and I said no. And he grabbed the mic we had on the PA system and started, bad mouthing me and saying all this stuff until I unplugged the mic on him. But there are always, and they were young back then. This was the 80s, and everybody was just like high school or just out of high school, and nobody had jobs. Everybody was just pretty, I mean, there are a few solid people that, actually worked for a living and that kind of thing, but a lot of them were just teenagers who were coming out to play. So nobody had any money, and they were just not very well in control of their emotions, and that. And I've seen over the years, though, people are less interested in playing tournaments now. For maybe the last 3 to 5 years, people don't really want to play in tournaments. They just want to get 4 or 5 of their friends together and go out and do the exercise and have the fun and do the social networking thing that we do. But to go out and play in an all-day tournament, I mean, it takes your whole day, and you maybe only still get 6 games or something at best. So, I think it is just, as the players have matured, the game has, kind of changed. And maybe if we, well, and the other thing is high school is now huge, and college beach volleyball, and you know more about that than I do, but I mean, it's just exploded. And so those players have all kinds of opportunities to play in tournaments or practice. They play 7 days a week, 8 hours a day, and boy, I wish they'd have had that when I was that age. But so I mean, the whole uh, dynamics of the game have changed over time. I guess that's good.
Yeah. I mean, tournaments are, it's hard for me now as an older player to play a tournament unless you keep playing, because in beach, especially, you have to warm up. You might be off, then you ref, then you have to warm up, so it's that fine
Yes.
line, you know, trying to stay warm, especially as an aging player like I am.
And
It's,
me. And
yeah.
and talking about aging, I remember when I was turning 30, and I was always one of the older people playing. And so when I was turning 30, I didn't really know anybody who was 30 who played. And I just thought, well, I'm turning 30. I guess I have to quit because,
Yeah.
that's I guess I'm officially an adult and I just shouldn't play anymore. And then I realized, well, I don't have to quit. I don't feel like quitting. And I didn't quit, but everybody was so much younger then. And that's kind of been the pattern since then.
Yeah. There's a few of us that still play. But I hear the same thing from people who, when they become mamas and they have babies and they're like, I can't play anymore. And
Hmm.
so we lose that age group from when they're in their childbearing years. And then maybe they come back to masters. Like, I didn't know about masters volleyball. So when I moved here to Arizona, in fact, you and Kelly and some of other women were like, we can play indoor masters. And I was like, what? I did not know that existed. I knew USAV, double B, A, indoor, like that kind of thing. And I thought, well, I'm too old to play, even those age groups, because you're going to be playing young girls if you go to nationals or you play, here it would be, what do they call it? Just Arizona region. So I was in Texas playing the Texas region. But when I moved here, I was like, well, I don't know, I'm probably too old. And so you feel like you're done playing volleyball.
Hmm.
Um, beach if you get a couple people together. But yeah, and that's what's so wonderful about you. You've fostered this community here in Arizona of older players, but also mentoring the younger players in your Queen of the Beach because you have a whole age range of
Yeah.
players that play in that. So we're playing with the young ones, we're playing, with the older, like in especially in beach, the older you are, you're a little more crafty than they are. So you can still compete at that level.
Yeah, and during I mean, I had 4 kids when I was in my 20s, and so I would play for a couple months and then I'd be pregnant again and and too big, or I'd be nursing and I couldn't play when I was nursing cuz I would lose all my milk. So I really only had like a few short months every couple of years that I could play, and so I didn't really get just when I was getting back to being pretty competitive, I'd be pregnant again and have to quit. And so, I mean, I think that's the key is to be okay with taking some years off, take some time off, and don't play for a while. And then, like you alluded to, there's a group, well, several groups. There's a wonderful group of women who have had babies recently, and they have toddlers. And we go to Jessie Sherman's house, and she has a wonderful court set up with, and I'm sure there are other people as well, but all the mamas come out and bring their babies, and we make sure we have enough people to have one of us kind of keep an eye on the kids while the other 4 are playing, and we rotate around and we have a great morning of play. So there's several of us who are older demographics who have some flexibility in our work schedule or who are retired, and we can play with these young mamas. And it makes for, like you said, a really good mix of people where you get the really energetic young folks or the people who are just coming back after having a baby and they're kind of rusty and maybe not in great shape yet. And then, people like me who are just old and never have, you know, never I'm not jumping much anymore. And I'm not, as good as I used to be, but I still can, like you said, I can still be crafty.
Oh yeah,
You
we played this morning, and you were very crafty, very crafty.
know.
So now, once you start having babies as a mama, since this is the Volley Mama podcast, did you try to get your kids into volleyball? I remember you used to bring some of the kids, and they
Oh,
would play
yeah.
with us. How
Oh,
did that go?
yeah.
Were they excited to do that? Did they just say, "Oh, it's fun time with mom," or how did that come about?
Yeah, so my kids were all interested enough in it, and paying attention to the kids was great. And so I ended up with 10 kids total. I had my own 4, and then my husband and I adopted 6 relatives when we were in our mid to late 40s. And so when we adopted the 6, there were 5 under 5. So I did take a couple years where I didn't really play much. Again, young ones, and they just needed more attention. So as they got older, though, I started bringing them out. And with all 10 of the kids, I have played a volleyball tournament with all 10 of my kids. But usually when by the time they were 12 to 14, they were really interested in it, really the junior high age. So I had 6 girls and 4 boys, and they would be pretty good at it. They could
Yeah.
get, to the point where they could serve and they could do a little bit of control. And I would play a tournament with each one of them I have, but none of them really got the bug like me. And I always wonder, because you did a great job with Jalen, because I mean, she loves the game and she's so interested in it. And so many mamas like you, their kids have just taken to it and really, have the same enthusiasm that you have. But none of my kids really got the bug for it. And, who knows why? They're also all very music. A bunch of my kids played in marching band, and that takes up a lot of your time. And my husband and I are both also very musical. And
Hmm.
so, I mean, you
Yeah.
sometimes you just don't have enough time to do everything. And I think that
Yeah.
maybe with our kids, we didn't pressure them. I wanted them to all play in a tournament with me. And so we all got good enough to where they could play in a tournament with me. But after that, when they got into high school, they all kind of had different interests and didn't get the bug. And I just figured, well, everybody's different.
Yeah, and I truly think that volleyball is one of those sports where if you're not doing it a lot, like how you grew up just wanting to play and playing with the guys, if you just play occasionally, it's a little harder I think to get those skills, and it's not as fun if, you can't, it's not as fun
Yeah,
as mama like serves to you and you can't pass.
right, right.
Which Jalen has done to me many times. I'm like, all right, just serve nice and easy to me, please. And then it's even harder because she's relaxed. But well, let's move on to, well, since you did talk about playing volleyball in our later years, let's move into that as far as like how do you, I mean, you probably play what, 5 days a week or something? Like, how do you keep your body playing? Because at your age,
Yeah.
um, and even my age, like
Oh,
people are
yeah.
like, you're still playing beach doubles. Like they're very shocked at that. And how do you take care of your body and make sure that like there's no injuries and all those type of things?
That's a really great question. And, your body does age. And one of the things I've been lucky with is I always had good health. I have always watched my food intake. Since I was 20, I've been on the keto diet. I eat high protein, high fat. I've been very aware of the harmful effects of sugar, and especially sugar, and the carbs, white flour, white rice kind of carbs, um, is another thing I've just been really aware of. So eating healthy is key. Also, because I have my build, I'm not very tall. I'm 5'5", and my arms have always been stick thin. Matter of fact, I couldn't even serve overhand until I was 30, and I won a gym membership and went to the gym and just worked on my arms to the point where I could serve overhand finally. I was 30. So I've never hit hard, so my shoulders haven't worn out at all because I haven't put a lot of stress on them. I just have been a shot placement person mostly. And for the rest of it, I had scopes done on both my knees about 10 years ago, and then my right knee had to be replaced just last year. And I had a tear in my shoulder. I actually did have a rotator cuff tear that had to get repaired a couple years back. So I've had a few things done, but my mindset has always been, I love playing volleyball. I want to play as much as I can. So, for example, when I had my rotator cuff, that was on my right shoulder, when I had that repaired, and I really didn't want to stress it and tear it again. So I went out every day and just hit balls with my left hand as much as I could and tried to serve with my left hand. I'm not successful serving overhand with my left hand yet, but I can do it with my underhand serve. So underhand left is what I do. When I played, I played at 9 weeks. After my surgery, I went to Florida and played in the senior nationals, and they had a beach division. I didn't play well, and I didn't dive because I didn't want to tear anything. So it was gentle, and I played all left-handed. But to me, that's the fun of it, is the camaraderie and getting out there. What can I do with my left hand? How good can I be with that? And um, so to me, I mean, like you said, I actually have to limit myself to 4 days a week playing. I would play every day, but as I've gotten older, I feel like I wear out, and I don't want to put so much wear on my body that I can't play. So 4 days a week is about my limit. And if I play 2 or 3 days of 2 or 3 hours straight, and then I do a tournament on the weekend, that's fine. That's enough play at my age. But because I never really got coached, and it never felt like a job to me. Volleyball was always freedom. You look at the doubles court and it's just you and your partner, and you think, okay, this is my world. I've got to cover it. And there's a freedom in that and a joy in my life that I just want to share. I want to make sure everybody sees that and feels that, and hopefully gets to experience it themselves on the court, because you can dive on the court and you don't get hurt, and you can turn and run, and you can hit short, hit deep, you can give your partner a option set, there's so many things you can do in doubles. It's just so much fun. that I don't want to stop.
Well, I share your sentiment there because we're both volley fanatics in that regard. I was going to ask you why you love volleyball, and you just pretty much explained that. So I agree with
Yeah.
you. What about the old school rules? Because I know you play some of those tournaments. The dinosaur, not my favorite. I loved the new rules because I like the smaller court and I like somebody getting a point no matter what. So tell me what your preference is. Old school. Yeah, I know this is a big topic amongst volley fanatics like us. Like a lot of people love the old score, big, big
Hmm.
court. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I do love, I mean, that's what I learned on. And I played, at least half of my volleyball life on the big court with side out scoring. And you can't, the serve cannot touch the net. And we didn't have antenna. We played pole to pole, and again, all of that is kind of fewer rules, more action, and so that part of it I really like. Now, I do have to say that the shorter court to me makes a lot of sense for the women because we typically are shorter than the men. And when you lower the net, the geometry of it makes it so that the ball comes faster. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to get over the net like in a men's net. And so it's a faster offense, faster serves, etc. Having a smaller court, in my mind, makes sense for the women, but not for the men. It makes more sense to me to keep the men on the big court because if you look at it, I mean, they can defend so much on that big court. Back in the old days, when everybody was on the big court, it was all about your defense. Could you defend that big of an area? Offense had a huge advantage, which is why they had the rules very tight hand sets so that you couldn't just throw a ball up there. You had to have skill and you couldn't just throw it over any which way. Like one of our beginners this morning was, just throwing it over and dumping. Wasn't that a good dump? No, it was not a
Yeah.
good dump. I mean, because you wanted to have that skill and you have to be facing where you're going to or have it directly back or something. Those kind of rules to me made more sense. There's more skill. The side out scoring makes a much, my opinion, more exciting game. You have a chance to come back. I won a tournament, but a game once when I was down 14-1 because you can only get points when you serve. And I had a partner who was a kind of a beginner, and that's why we got down 14-1. But then I went back to serve, and I scored 15. Well, it had to be 15 points because you had to win by 2, so I had to win 16. Anyway, we won it 16-14 just by serving aces. And you really can't do, I mean, I suppose, it's possible to do that, but it's not likely that you're going to do that with side out scoring. I mean, not with rally scoring,
Right.
so to me, it kind of makes you feel like you always have a chance.
Yeah.
You always have a chance to come back and win with side out scoring, much more so than rally scoring. You get down by 4 or 5 points and it's difficult because all they have to do is side out and bam, they won.
Well, and I think that's why, oh gosh, was it 5 years ago now that they changed the AVP changed the scoring to the freeze.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it became, side out scoring at like when someone was at game point. And
Yes.
I think a lot of fans liked it because, like you said, people could come back from
Yeah.
whatever deficit. But from the player standpoint, I know a lot of the players didn't like it because if they got that
Well,
far ahead, they were like, well, we should win. you know,
that's not very fair in my mind, doing that
yeah,
way. It's just kind of,
yeah. It's
trying to make it right, but it's not right. It's not fair. I agree
well,
with that. It
they
wasn't a
didn't keep
good,
it. They didn't
yeah,
keep it. So,
they didn't keep
um,
that.
I think it's interesting that you say that about the men's game. Do you think it was then leading into my next question? was the game more exciting back then? And is that why it's kind of had more of success as far as sponsorships and following because it was more exciting back then? Because now it's like big block. I mean, should they raise the net? I mean, I know there's people that have been talking about raising the net for both women and men because, I mean, they're literally underarms are
I
like
know.
over the net, like right now,
Yeah,
because everyone's taller and bigger now.
true.
Uh,
I mean, that's true. And I have to say, though, that the side out game with the big court was also had its problems as far as interest because you'd serve a ball, they'd pass set and side out. They'd serve a ball, pass set, side out. I mean, it
mm,
would be like the score wouldn't change for hours. You know, you could have the same score for, and there are some games out there. It was that was the way it was. You know, and so I don't know that the excitement part of it, you know, made such a big difference. They're much more able to defend the smaller court. And that in itself would make a better game,
yeah.
right? Because you can, it's not just whoever, you know, hits the ball is going to get a point. You have a good chance of defending and getting that up. And there are a lot of great defensive plays and stuff. So I don't think that added to the lack of popularity here. You know, I don't know. A lot of better minds than mine have tried to analyze why we don't have, why it isn't the, you know, grassroots sport that it used to be. But I mean, for one thing, these things do seem to be cyclical. And it was
Mm.
a new thing back then, and everybody wanted to try it. And wow, did you see these people? And now it's an Olympic sport. So it's kind of lost its newness. And back then it was like all the teenagers and all of the young adults just loved it and wanted to do it. And so it was a big party time for everybody. And so it was like a party on the beach, but you had all these pro beach players that were awesome and they looked great. They were in great shape, both the men and the women. And it was fun to watch. And so it was just a big party atmosphere. Once you start having kids, you know, and you um, um, I don't know, you know, it just seems like um, it's just not that, you know, for whatever reason, things go in and out of favor from a spectator perspective. And also, we were talking earlier about back then, we had such good sponsorship
Yeah.
and the beer companies, Miller Lite and Corona, were huge fans of beach volleyball. They sponsored these big tournaments, and Jose Cuervo and all of these things, big name Nike, and even there were so many sportswear companies. Anybody could start a sportswear company and get a player to wear their shorts, and then all of the fans would go out and buy their shorts, and wear them and their shirts and their hats, and you know, it was such a good little community thing, but it had that some money at the top that fed into it that televised it and made it exciting and new and fun, which I don't see any top level sponsors. And, you know, that kind of marketing things must change through the years. And I'm not an expert on marketing. So I don't know what it would take to get somebody to do that. But if you look at any of the other big sports, I mean, they have big name sponsors, you know. So,
And they also charge for admission, which I think volleyball players are a little reluctant to actually
mhm.
spend the money on a ticket, which is interesting because it's the only sport at the time where, yeah, you could walk on the beach and see a game for free. And I think people kind of use that as an excuse, like, well, we never paid, to watch.
I think it's that expectation. You know,
Yeah.
it's not like you're going to go out and watch the Phoenix Cardinals play a football game on a, you know, field out in the middle of town
Right.
here. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
there's a lot more preparation that has to be done for those kinds of sports, and with the referees and the umpires and all the stuff. Whereas volleyball is, I think there's less overhead in
Yeah.
volleyball from that perspective. Anybody can go to the beach and play, and you can see these pros practicing at the beach on the weekdays. So if you know what their home beach is and what they're doing, you can go out and watch them,
Good point.
without paying any
Good point.
day of the week, which you couldn't do with football or baseball because you're not going to get the whole team out there, at the beach doing anything. Where volleyball, it's just two of them and they can play against some schmucks, and you can go watch
Yeah,
them.
it's a good point. And a lot of them will just play with some people that are on the beach. Do you
There are
have? Oh,
I was just going to say there's a lot of good stories about the pros coming out to play with schmucks, and it was so much fun. They had fun and they were so approachable. Anyway,
yeah,
still
no,
are.
they still are, most of them.
Yeah.
Do you have a female or a male player that's a pro back in the day or now that is inspirational to you as a player?
Oh, there were so many back then. I loved Kathy Gregory, and her play was phenomenal, but her mouth was even better. I loved her trash talk. And that's another thing about old time volleyball. We did so much trash talking back
Yes.
then. And it's so fun to do that. I know you're good at it, and Kelly Jacobs is good at it, and all the guys are still good at it. It comes so natural, when you're out there. So Kathy Gregory for sure was a good inspiration back in the day. Um, and now I like Kristen. It used to be Nuss, but I know she got married. What's her name?
Kristen Cruz.
Cruz. That's right. Now,
Mm,
and part of that's because she's just maybe an inch taller than me. And look at her play.
I
Look at
know.
her. She's so phenomenal. I just love her. I love Kelly Chang as well, and
Me too.
and through the years, Holly McPeak was amazing. Nina Matthews, I loved her. I mean, uh, the women in the sport have all been just wonderful, good role models and wonderful people. On the men's side, I liked the team of Hobby Dodd, Tim Hovland, and Mike Dodd, especially, of course, like Mike Dodd, because he's always been the adult in the room, you know. And Tim
Yeah.
Hovland was such a kid. And I mean, not that he was younger, he was just mentally younger and lost his temper all the time and would do crazy things, but also hilariously funny. And Mike
Yes.
Dodd was the perfect foil for him and very just a neat team. I really liked that team.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think our sport lacks getting to know the players. Like back then, we used to sit courtside. We would hear the conversations. We'd hear the trash talking back and forth. And I think that now, I think once you get to know, like I really do follow Kristen and Taryn, and once you get to know the players and you kind of, like them, you're going to follow them. But if you
Yeah,
don't really know them, I think a lot of people, I think our sport needs to do a better job of really showing like who these people are, like what they're like. Do
yeah,
they trash talk? Are they just,
that's
um,
true.
so I mean, I'm drawn to the teams that also do not traditional volleyball, like Kelly Chang has so many different
Yes,
options in
the
her.
options.
Same thing
Yeah,
with Kristen. She's so short. So to the fact that she can be so successful is a story,
it's
the
a
players that you mentioned, they all had something that was like a little different than the norm, and they were fun to watch. And they were great, people off
I'll
the
tell
court.
you one story about watching the men. This is before the women pros came out, and they used to have the men's pros would come on a tour, and they'd come through Phoenix and play at Indian School Park, and they would allow 4 local teams to get in. So I ran qualifiers for the local teams, and the top 4 local teams would get in and play. And the way the court was back then, the guys only had maybe 3 feet to serve, and then the crowds were sitting on the grass in the back there. And I remember sitting right there in the corner, and Mike Dodd was serving, and I was looking at the other team, and I'm right there, and I said, serve line, just mostly to myself. I didn't think he would hear it. And I said, serve line. And he did serve line, and he got an ace on the line. And he turns over to me and says, okay, now where? It was such a cool guy to do this little stupid girl.
That is awesome. That's
Yeah, I
awesome.
mean, they're just such neat people. Like you said, getting to know them and interacting with them. I do think that even still, there's more interaction between the pro players and the crowds in volleyball than there is in most sports, I would say. Maybe because the crowds are smaller. Mm.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, we go back every now and then to our community of Imperial Beach, and Jalen grew up, playing there, and they have annual tournaments. And we used to get the seashells and put it in the old beer can and shake it. Like, so, we were shake, 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 if somebody went over on one, or, shake, shake, shake. And so when Jalen, was starting to play, she'd be like, Mom, why are people getting the can, like she wanted to be like,
Yeah,
shake, 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 so it's kind of a fun
yeah,
tradition, like to trash talk people, because she grew up with people saying, oh, right, Jalen, like you think you can, hit that on
yeah.
me, I mean, it was just fun. That's
Put
what
down
makes
your
the sport.
purse. Did you break a nail?
Yeah. Yeah, that's so. Um, what else do I want to ask you? Is there any lesson that beach has taught you over the years, like a life lesson?
Yeah, so many, probably more than you could say. One of the best things about beach volleyball, probably most sports, is that it's a good combination of fitness, staying in shape. I mean, I can't think of a tougher workout than playing sand volleyball. There's very few sports that give you that kind of a good workout. So that alone is huge. And then the social aspect of it with the women who play, particularly because I play more women's now than anything. There are so many great men out there too. I kudos to all the players and the community, but I know the women the best, and they are all so personable and social and looking out for each other. And this mom group that I play with, they trade baby clothes and toys depending on the ages. And the us older grandmas will come and babysit their kids occasionally if they want to go out. So there's that social friendship aspect of it that you just can't discount. I've made lifelong friends in volleyball. You're one of them. And, what would I have done without all of this mayhem in my life, the volleyball mayhem that we have. And now it has allowed me to travel and, you can play masters just if you have the desire to go to another country and play, and you have the money to go and make it happen, however you do. I mean, you can go play. There's not a qualifier or anything like that. You have to be a certain age and you play in your age group and you have to get your partner lined up ahead of time. But I've been all over the world playing volleyball. So it's another wonderful opportunity. And of course, a life lesson because I've got Russian friends and Japanese and Italian and from all over the world. I have friends that play volleyball, and what it makes the world smaller and easier to understand. So there's
Well,
so many benefits to doing this.
one of my favorite memories is when you were playing the World Masters, I think, in New Zealand, and I didn't get into the tournament, but I met you guys out on a sailboat, and we were so much of a volley fanatics that we were actually peppering on the sailboat, and then we'd play on the beaches of New Zealand with no net. We were that volleyball fanatic, like we had to play, and we just pretended there was a net, which got into some interesting arguments about hitting it low.
Remember, I think I have video of us peppering on the boat. So I still have that video.
And that was something yeah, that's great. I mean, it's a great memory. I mean, you're one of the first people I met when I'd first moved to Arizona, and I went and grabbed, Julie Chan, and I ended up playing the World Masters. It was the Cuervo, and we faced you and Kelly in the finals. I mean, and I kind of had just moved here, but I didn't. I mean, it's such a small world that you end up seeing like,
Yeah.
volleyball people everywhere. There's volleyball communities all over, and they're the first person to open up their house. Like if you're ever
Yes.
in Seattle, if you're ever in, Denver, come on over. It really is a wonderful community. Lastly, I just want to ask you, like, why don't you explain a little bit of which organizations that you have traveled around the world with? Like, so it's World Masters Games, there's the Dinosaur, there's a couple tournaments that
Yeah.
are out there for people our age as well to play Masters as well.
Yeah, so the World Masters organization, World Masters Games, and I think they may have just changed their name, but it's something like WMG. But I think if you Google World Masters Games, they do a really good job. And it's not just volleyball or beach volleyball; they do indoor and beach, but they also do so many other sports. They do baseball and softball and swimming and track and field and bicycling. They have so many other sports that they also support. So they have the World Masters Games once every 4 years, and then every year in between, they do regional masters. So America's Masters have played that I know of in Brazil and up in um, Canada. I played in the Canada, but I didn't go to Brazil. European Masters Games, I played in Italy. Pan Asian Games, I played in Malaysia. And so the World Masters Games do a really fine job of that. There are a lot of other local organizations that once you have met some of the people in that country, they will invite you to their masters. So I played in the European Masters game. I think it was 2017. And ever since then, when they have a Masters tournament, which they do twice a year, they invite me. And and then from there, I think that's where I got the Slovakian invitation, which I'm going to go do here pretty soon in August. And I
Which
don't
I
think
couldn't
they're
do it with you,
affiliated.
but
I know. One of these days, we're going to play a World Masters, go travel. So, I mean, so once you get on kind of the radar of people, and I know we run the Old Not Dead, and I invite people from all over the world to come and play in that if you have an interest. And we get people from out of the country, mostly in the country, but some out of the country players will come and, hey, I feel like getting out to Phoenix in the wintertime and playing some volleyball outside. So I'm going to play in Bee's tournament, and Scott Peters runs the men's, and Bill Pincus. Those guys do a great job on the men's side. So I think once you kind of get plugged in, you start seeing things. Um, Australia runs Masters tournaments probably at least once a month somewhere. Australia is a big country, by the way, uh, and far away. But now that I know people there, one of these days I'm going to go play in Australia because they do it all the time. But again, a lot of times it's these local groups, like our local Old Not Dead is just Phoenix, California, Texas, maybe Colorado. A small group. You wouldn't hear about us if you weren't in the community and didn't have a friend of a friend who said, hey, I want to do this. The South of the Border group is not a master's group, but they do a good job of getting people together. I know there's one that does the Turks and Caicos, whatever that is,
Turks
as
and
well.
Caicos.
And yeah, Caicos. So there are groups that do that kind of thing, regularly, that not necessarily masters, but it's a good way to meet. Whenever I play in any of those, there's plenty of people over 30, over 40 that play in those. So it's fun.
Yeah, the volleyball vacations and the
Yes.
SOB, and they I mean it's such a fun, way to be on vacation, because I remember I used to go to vacation and I'd be like, no
Yeah.
volleyball. I'm bringing my volleyball. I'm peppering with Jalen, and we're the only ones that can play. Or you go to resort and the people, they're picnic volleyballers, which is fun for maybe, like you don't want to get hurt. But, then, or you'd have to bring your friends to a location, which we've done a couple times. And, it's so fun to just go on a vacation and play volleyball. I mean, with
Those are
people.
great organizations. Yeah.
Yeah, with people who play. So I highly recommend both of those. You meet a lot of same thing. You meet a lot of people there who have now become friends, stay in touch, always have a place to stay. All those things are just wonderful about the volleyball community. I don't know what other sports do that, but I
Yeah.
know for volleyball, I know there's people from SOB that put up some of the pros when they come into
Yes.
town because the pros can't make a living, it's really hard for them. So people open up their homes to the pros and, it's fun. It's a great thing. But is there anything else that we didn't cover that you might want to say about your love volleyball and anything
I
that I
think
might
you
have?
did a really good job of uh, doing this interview, and I love that you're doing it with a focus on Volley Mamas. This is wonderful. You are another great ambassador of the sport, Amy, and we're so lucky to have you in our group of friends and our local friends, and really appreciate all the work you've done through the years to keep volleyball going.
Oh, thanks, B. I mean, you truly are a gem, and I really value our friendship and our on the court and off the court. I know you've been wonderful to Jalen. You sponsored her and took her to the Dino tournament,
That
and
was so fun.
you took me to the which tournament was it? Oh, Seaside, where we actually got a check. This was what, 2 years ago?
Yes,
And we
that's right.
still won money playing volleyball. Like, who would know, right? It was, I don't know, it was $50 or something, but hey.
I'll take it. I'll take it.
I'll take it. All right. Well, stay on with me and everyone else. Thanks for tuning in. And I hope you enjoyed this conversation with B, and I'll see you next time. Take care. Bye.